So Bill Baum told me, he said, well, he said, the first chance I'll put you on day shift, or as a air conditioning mechanic, I want you to take over this 610 boiler room. 610 boiler room was the big boiler room that they had started just a year after I had got there. So at that time there was a kid named, and he was in the Marine Corps, and he was from Boston, and his uncle was one of the big wigs that worked at Hughes. So he had written Bill Baum a job. Larry told him he was going to get out of the Marine Corps. Larry was stationed at El Toro. He said he was going to get out of the Marine Corps, and he wanted to get a job, and his uncle said, he'll come over here, well, I'll get you a job. So he wrote a note to Bill Baum, the next man you hire will be this kid. So Bill showed me this note. He said, hell, I can't get you in here. He said, I got to hire this kid. So I give him hell about it. I said, you told me the next job coming up would be mine. He said, I got to hire this guy. He said, I'll get you the next job. So he's getting ready to hire this Larry. So I'm working graveyard shift, and every time I go up and snoop into offices that are the boss's offices, the managers and all those guys up there. And every time I see some piece of paper with this kid's name on it, I threw it out. Sometimes it was just notes scribbled. Sometimes it was a formal letter written from the manager to Bill Baum or to somebody. Other times it was regular job applications, you know, all written up and all filled in and everything. Anyhow, every time I got my hands on one of these things, because he was trying to get the same job I wanted, see? And I figured if I threw his papers away long enough, they just figured he didn't want the job, and I would get the job, see? And I would be over there before he ever could find out what happened. So I kept throwing these papers. I don't know how many of these papers I threw out. And I didn't throw them in the trash can right there. I'd take them out and throw them in some other building in the trash can somewhere else, crumple them all up and throw them in the trash can. I must have done this at least half a dozen times. So anyhow, the guy got fired anyhow. But about the same time, I went on day shift anyhow, because at that time they figured they were needing more men. They were really doing a lot of work and hired a lot of guys and all that. So they hired him, and at about the same time, I went on day shift. Anyhow, I told you how Larry finally got hired. That was about 78 or something like that. At the same time, I went on days. I had worked at Hughes about 9 years or something like that. So anyhow, he got hired, and so through the years, we hadn't worked together too much. I never really knew him all that much. And then later on, when I was getting ready to retire, about 4 or 5 years before I retired, I got switched over to building 675, 678, which was the new boiler room. They built in some new buildings. And so one day, they were changing buildings around. I guess they had closed down one of the buildings that Larry worked on, or some of the buildings Larry worked on. So he didn't have a cubby hole to go for his work things, have his work things and stuff in there. So I see him come over there to the 678 where I was. There was a big parking area between the main boiler room and the buildings, and he was wandering around. He come in there. He said, "I'm looking for a place to put my tools. You know, I lost my place over there." I said, "Well, I got a." At that time, I had 2 offices. I had one office in 678, which was the chiller room. Had 3 big chillers in it, and a couple boilers, and half a dozen pumps, and there was a main control station there. And I had a nice office right in the corner. I had two different computer systems in there, and all the books I wanted, little storage places, and so. And I had another office that was up on the roof. It was in a penthouse up on the roof, and that had all the computerized stuff that they had put in to control this new clean room that they had there, and I had been learning all about that. So I said, "Well, you could probably put your stuff." He had a couple rollaways there. I said, "Put them up there in the penthouse." So slowly but slowly, he was kind of hanging around there, and we got to know him. And he liked computer stuff. I didn't know much about computer stuff except the specialized control thing that they had for this big clean room, which was all these electronic controls with humidity and all that. And so slowly we got kind of acquainted, and he would come around and we'd talk, and so we got to be pretty good friends, and we would work together, and I tried to show him the computer stuff, because I knew that, you know, that's the way things were going. If a guy wanted to stay in the air conditioning business, that's what he had to learn. And I was getting ready to get out of it, and at that time, you know, I just had a little while to go. And Hughes was always talking about they were going to do this, or they were kind of winding down, and I was hoping that I was going to be able to get my retirement and get out of there and do whatever, get another job, because I was too young to retire, didn't have enough money to retire on it, etc. And anyhow, we got to be pretty good friends, and so when it came time that I was going to retire, just a little while before I retired, I wrote this story. He didn't know that I'd done this to try to keep him out of that plant. He didn't know anything about that. Nobody knew anything about it. And so I wrote up a story. He had some books one time up in a penthouse. And these were air conditioning books, and they'd been laying there a long time. And, you know, it was one of these days he was going to come and pick them up and take them. So I wrote this story up. I wanted him to know what happened, but I wanted him to know after I retired. I didn't want to be there. So I wrote this story up on my computer, and I typed it out, had it put on a printer, and then I folded it up real nice, and I shoved it in his book. Well, one time when I was either on vacation or something, I was gone for a couple days, anyhow, I come back, and he says, you know, he says, and in this story, it said all the things I'd done at it, that I knew he was getting a job there, and every time I saw his papers, I threw them out, and then later on we became pretty good friends, and so I retired, and he quit and went his own way. Well, he did. He took a voluntary layoff the same time I retired, which was probably a smart thing to do, because, you know, the place they laid off a lot of guys after that, and he went out, got out on his own business. Anyhow, I wrote this story up, and he found it. Well, he didn't get mad. He thought it was kind of cute, etc. And so that's the end of that story. And we're still acquainted. He comes over here. We have him over here once in a while for one of the big feasts we put on for Christmas or something like that. And since then, he's gone out and gone on his own. And now, this last time I talked to him, he's gone with another company, and seems to be doing okay. I mean, he's making the payments, and he's not broke, so what more can you ask?